So we finally get to the end of the novel, and chapter 23 serves as the climax, while chapter 24 is the resolution and denouement of the story. And so, as we talked about in the last video, chapters 21 and 22 kind of push the tension, push the action to get to the climax, and it's tense, it's scary. Like, I can imagine if this were a movie, there's that tense, slow, kind of violin-y music that's really suspenseful and making us think about what's going to happen, especially as the procession moves along. And it's kind of like everyone's having fun, it's joyful, but something bad is about to happen. And so Dimsdale has given his sermon, and what has happened is after the sermon, everyone is in awe. They're contemplating just everything that he said, and they're mesmerized by what he has said, and there's just a silence. Right? That's how the first paragraph starts. There's this momentary silence, and everyone slowly starts talking and talking and talking. And in the second paragraph, their rapture broke into speech. The street and the marketplace absolutely babbled from side to side with applauses of the minister. And they keep talking about how they just gush. They can't believe he's someone so wise, so connected to God. And it says here that there's this relationship. He shows the relationship between the deity and the communities of mankind. But there's also this sadness, and they're thinking that he has given his last sermon. He's about to die. Um, but it kind of has this deified persona to him. Meanwhile, if you look at the next paragraph after that, we see all the praises given to Dimsdale, but then, meanwhile, Hester Prynne was standing beside the scaffold of the pillory with the Scarlet Letter still burning on her breast. So Dimsdale's here at the podium giving his sermon. He's being praised, lauded, adored, revered. And here's Hester at the scaffold with the Scarlet Letter of shame. And Hawthorne does that juxtaposition again. And he continues doing this and even saying that there's like this brilliant particles of a halo above his head. And the reader, as a reader, you're thinking, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna die before he's able to reveal his secret? But as he passes Hester, he grabs her arm and brings her up to the scaffold. Towards the middle of the chapter, he says, he turned towards the scaffold and stretched forth his arms. Hester, said he, come hither. Come, little Pearl. And they start walking up the scaffold, and you're like, oh, shoot, this is it. And even Chillingworth himself, he thrusts himself through the crowd to snatch back his victim from what he sought to do. He's like, no, you can't do it. I need to get my vengeance on you. And he says, Madman, hold. What is your purpose? Wave back that woman. Cast off this child. All shall be well. Do not blacken your fame and perish your dishonor. I can yet save you. He's playing him like a fiddle. But Dimsdale knows. And he says, ha, tempter. Methinks thou art too late. Thy power is not what it was. With God's help, I shall escape thee now. And so he brings up Hester, and they have this conversation of, is this the right place? Is this the right time? And what he does was he decides it is time. He turns to the dignified and venerable rulers, to the holy ministers who were his brethren, to the people whose great heart was thoroughly appalled because they know what's coming, yet overflowing with tearful sympathy as knowing that some deep life matter, which if full of sin, was full of anguish and repentance likewise, was now to be laid open to them. He calls them, says, to look at this wonderful minister that they've revered all these years. And on my book, it's page 209, about the second to last page of the chapter. With a convulsive motion, he tore away the ministerial band from before his breast. It was revealed! But it were irreverent to describe that revelation. For an instant, the gaze of the horror-stricken multitude was concentrated on the ghastly miracle, while the minister stood with a flush of triumph in his face as one who, in the cries of acutest pain, had won a victory. Then down he sank upon the scaffold. Hester partly raised him and supported his head against her bosom. So he's revealed something, and still, even to this point, Hawthorne isn't revealing exactly what it was. But as you see in the beginning of chapter 24, it was indeed a scarlet letter. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And so he falls, he collapses. It's like it's done. He's revealed the sin. He's revealed that he and Hester were the ones who committed the adultery, and he is the father of Pearl. And he's about getting ready to die. And so at the very end, it says, by giving, or he hath proved his mercy most of all in my afflictions, by giving me this burning torture to bear upon my breast, by sending yonder dark and terrible old man, Chillingworth, to keep the torture always at red heat, by bringing me hither to die this death of triumph, ignominy before the people. Had either of these agonies been wanting, I had been lost forever. Praised be his name, his will be done. Farewell. And with that, Dimmesdale dies. He dies. And then we get to the resolution, the denouement, in chapter 24. We see the very second paragraph here. Hawthorne says that his death was a parable. If you look at the middle of the paragraph there. It says, in order to impress on his admirers that mighty and mournful lesson that in the view of infinite purity, we are sinners all alike. And so this kind of shows the moral of the story. Even though it's dark, it's full of revenge and sin and evil, the moral is that we're all broken people, right? Dimmesdale himself, the one who's revered, and he goes on to talk about that, how we revere people in society and see them as above sin, above reproach, but we're all sinners alike. And Chillingworth then also dies within the year of Dimmesdale dying, because Chillingworth has lost hope and lost the reason to live. I mean, the whole purpose of his existence was to get revenge on Dimmesdale, and now that that's taken away from him, he has no purpose, so he dies. And then he has left a lot of land, interestingly, to Pearl, and Pearl becomes quite a rich woman, but becomes kind of a mysterious figure. No one really sees from her again, and it's potentially argued that she left to England and hasn't returned back. And then Hester disappears for a little bit too, but she comes back. And the interesting thing is she keeps the Scarlet Letter on her bosom. If you look at the second to last paragraph, says that she returned because here had been her sin, here her sorrow, and here was yet to be her penitence. Never afterwards did it, the symbol of the Scarlet Letter, quit her bosom. And interestingly, she becomes kind of this counsel giver, advice giver in the town. It says here that many besought her counsel. And what she would do is she assured them too of her firm belief that at some brighter period when the world should have grown ripe for it in heaven's own time, a new truth would be revealed in order to establish the whole relation between man and woman on a sure ground of mutual happiness. She becomes kind of this encouraging motherly figure of the town until she passes away. In this cemetery where she has a grave marked on a field sable the letter A, Giles. So thus ends the story, and hopefully the moral of the story is kept intact, and really key themes that appear in this story that are important and monumental for our society as a whole. So hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, good luck doing the final project.